Hello, friends. Welcome to Drop It Like It's Doc podcast. I am Dr. Day Luna, your favorite spicy doctor, educator, and yogi. And today we are going to be talking all about mold. This is something that was a huge part of my health journey. It's something that is hidden as the root cause of many patients that I work with. And I am so excited to share this information with you because it is going to change your life. So friends, mold is something that is very misunderstood. Mold is a multicellular organism. It's in the fungi family. And this is not something that if you see it, it's there. It's something that is a part of our environment. It's something that we evolved with. But in case you forgot, the inside of your home should be quite different than the outside of your home. However, mold can grow quite well in a sick environment. And I want you to start thinking of your home almost like your body. A sick body or an environment in which allows microbial overgrowth will be a sick body. Similar to a house. If a house is one that is not sealed properly, if its barriers are breached, if there are things in there that should not, whether that be toxins or microbes, that home will be sick. The truth is, so many of our homes are sick. And also when I say home, this could be your office. It could be your gym. It could be somewhere that you frequent and where you are now being exposed to whatever is in that environment. Mold is something that a lot of people think you have to see it for it to be there. You have to see it growing, that black mold in your shower. You have to watch it to grow on your clothes, under your bed, or else it's not there. This could not be further than the truth. What is growing on the surface is always an indication that there is something beneath the surface. So when mold grows, it's not only the mold growth that is the issue, not at all. It is the toxins that certain species of mold emit. These toxins are quite small, they can become airborne, and they move around the cabin. So you inhale air all the time, right? As you're inhaling this air, any toxins that are volatile, they're going right into your body. Mold spores are so small, and we actually have a single layer of cells at the bridge of our sinuses that is direct connection to the brain. Mold, right on into that sweet little brain. Also, it could be on food, like moldy vegetables or moldy bread. You're not gonna get super sick from that as far as comparing it to someone who is living in a moldy house. However, you can definitely get mold from ingesting it, going into your gut. You could get it from breathing it in. You could get it from wearing moldy clothes and it will cross across your skin because truly it's very small and it's really easy to move throughout the body. And mold is very toxic. It is very toxic. And I know firsthand what that feels like because I lived in an array of moldy homes. Let me just paint this picture for you. Grew up in pretty sure a moldy home, Mom and Dad, pretty sure, because there's just quite a few hurricanes that go on in New York unannounced. So, things get wet, things don't dry properly. It takes 24 hours for mold to show up. So if you had a flood ever in your house and didn't immediately remediate it because, you're a human and didn't shut down your whole life to deal with this, you have mold. I promise you. You do. You just do. It's as simple as that. So grew up in a moldy home, didn't really have symptoms. Then moved to California, in which the buildings are, I don't know. I'm not a contractor, but I've never lived in shittier buildings. Let me just tell you that. My dorm, Tenoshka, you've heard me talk shit about this if you watched my first episode. SDSU, baby, before they used all the out-of-state tuition to build a whole new college. The buildings were quite old, they had warnings on them, and my dorm was flooded all the fucking time. And it smelled. It did, but just paid a couple $1,000s every month to live in there, no big deal. So lived in a moldy dorm. Then I attended a moldy medical school. While I was in the moldy medical school, I lived in 2 moldy homes. And yes, I was aware that there was mold there, but I wasn't aware of the impact that it was having on my health. Because remember how we talk about toxic exposures, kind of like a bucket, right? So it all depends on what you're draining out, but also what you're putting in. And during this time, I was learning about health. I was learning about wellness. I was a yogi, a hot yogi. So I was sweating all the time. I started eating better. So it took me a little while for these toxic exposures to catch up with me. But when they did, it really shook my world mental health wise. So what can happen with mold is that when you are exposed to it, some people, certain types of mold, they cause allergic symptoms. So sneezing, itchy, runny eyes, itchy, runny nose, that kind of a thing, allergic symptoms, even asthma, these upper respiratory manifestations, that can absolutely be from mold. However, for me, I didn't have any of those. I did not have an allergic reaction to mold. What I had was a systemic reaction to mold. So if you are living in a house and if you don't have allergies or any of that like super congestion, that does not mean that you don't have mold. You can have all of the other symptoms because these mold spores, they are exquisitely toxic, they're circulating, and they send off an alarm signal to your entire body. So now you have systemic inflammation. In the mold world, this is called chronic inflammatory response syndrome, or CIRS. And this is a collection of signs and symptoms that are broad throughout the body that show that someone's immune system is hypersensitive to mold and they are hyperreactive to it. So for me, I had things like severe brain fog. I couldn't remember words. I couldn't remember my patients. And that one was really scary for me because I spent a lot of time with my patients, staring at them, learning about them. Truly staring at them. And I couldn't remember anything about them. And then I started to worry that I had early signs of dementia. And then just pause and think, what if these diagnoses that you have a root cause of something toxic, right? Because they probably do. We're going to talk about that soon. I am convinced that almost all of ALS and almost all of MS is due to a neurological inflammatory response. And I'll share some fun facts about that in a little bit. But for me, severe brain fog, couldn't remember names. I was tired. I felt like I needed coffee to even get my eyes open. When I look back at pictures of myself, I was swollen. My face was swollen. My eyes had big bags under them. I didn't feel like myself. And I was also going through a very stressful time, med school, a divorce, no big deal. So I really attributed it to that. Oh, and fucking COVID. Yeah, like COVID happened. And I really thought it was all due to that. And little did I know that I was living in a mold den. Other things, I would get migraines out of nowhere. I would get visual floaters where I would look around and just see black spots flying around. I would get dizzy, lightheaded. I would have to pee all the time. That is a telltale sign, babes. If you have to do the pee-pee dance all the time, if you cannot drink enough water to save your life, something's going on in there. Something's going on because mold, again, it's circulating everywhere, right? It's even impacting the hormones that tell you to drink or to pee. It confuses them, so you're just flooding everything out and you're pulling the minerals out of your body. Something else that mold can do is it displaces essential fatty acids in your body. So it can displace essential fatty acids that are truly surrounding all of your cells, making them so they can talk to one another, listen to hormones, do their job. And it can also do that in your brain because your brain is fat. Your nerves are layered in myelin sheath, which is a layer of fat. So if these fats are displaced, then the nerves aren't going to work as well. So you can get things like tingling, numbness. A lot of individuals that I work with get static shocks. I actually remember that I could not do a load of laundry without getting electrocuted. And I just thought that, I'm special. Who knows? No, it was that electrochemically, things can be so off inside of your body because you are basically a little electrical conductor. And our neurons talk to one another with these different electrical signals. And if that is off at all due to the inflammation from mold and how it impacts cellular signaling, you could get things like tingling, numbness, and shock all the time. Some other things that can show up for you is joint pain. Really anything that is loud in the body, that is systemic in the body, can be from something within you. And I really want you to take note, did these things show up for you after you moved? After you started a new job? After you started frequenting somewhere often? And I think that a lot of the times we don't consider that it's the environment that's making us sick. But again, I do this for a living. And a lot of the times it's the environment that's making you sick. This epidemic of sick homes in this country is mind-blowing, and a lot of it is because contractors just lay down things as quickly as they can, oftentimes. I am well aware that there are phenomenal contractors and there are people that actually really do put conscious effort into building a beautiful, safe home, but let's be real, this is America where we do things fast and quick to make money off of them. So sometimes things are laid down with sick materials that are, first of all, toxic on their own, but also they don't allow adequate airflow in the home. They don't allow the home to breathe. And as a result, things can get stagnant. Mold loves stagnancy. It loves dark. It loves moist. So you might even notice symptoms on your body in dark, moist places. Remember I told you that I used to be a leopard? I used to have white spots all over my body. And that was yeast. That was a yeast overgrowth. Some people get vaginal yeast infection. Some people get thrush on their mouth, candida-like symptoms. And I will tell you that this is a yeast that lives in our body. And if that is overgrowing, it's a sign that your immune system cannot keep it under control. For me, I did a candida cleanse for maybe 2 fucking years, like literally didn't eat sugar. I was crazy. I was so mad, but I was so self-conscious, honestly. I'm a yoga teacher. People see my body. I love my body. And it didn't make sense to me that I was learning all these things about health and still I couldn't get to the bottom of this. I took every anti-fungal herb under the sun for years. I'm really not kidding, fam. And nothing shifted. And it wasn't until I went to India and spoke to a beautiful Ayurvedic doctor who said to me, I've only seen this in people that are exposed to mold. Not one of my doctors in this country even brought it up to me. They didn't. And trust me, I saw conventional doctors, I saw naturopathic doctors, functional medicine doctors. They told me that I was nutrient depleted. They worked on the other infections, but no one ever thought to say, why is your immune system suppressed? And I am grateful that even though it honestly took me like 7 years to find out that mold was the root. But again, I'm so grateful that I did because then I can share this information with you. So how to know if you're exposed to mold. There's a lot of different things that can happen. Of course, if you resonated with any of the signs and symptoms that I just said, and truly that was just skimming the surface of things that can show up in your body. But if any of those resonated, you want to check this out. However, if you are in a house and if it smells, we know that smell, that like earthy, tangy, old person smell. If you walk into a house and it smells like that, there's mold in that house. If you walk into a hotel and it smells like that, there is mold in there. I kid you not, I've walked into Airbnbs and canceled them because I walk in and I smell it and this body deserves the world. And she's done with the mold. So if that smell, first and foremost, get out of there. Of course, if you see it, right? If you see it, it's in the environment. But as a reminder, a lot of the times you are not going to see it. It's underneath the sink, it's behind the wall, it's in the carpet, it's in your furniture. Because if mold spores get volatile, right? They're in the air, there's dust. Dust will bind to the mold and it will settle. So it can settle on clothes, it can settle on carpet, it can settle on couches. I hate carpet, by the way. Not a fan at all. But like a smelly couch, there's mold in it. A smelly carpet, there's mold in it. If you walk into a space and you're sneezing, you instantly become congested. Something that would happen for me is I would walk in somewhere and I would feel drunk. Honestly, when I was living in a moldy house, I felt drunk all the time. I don't even drink alcohol because I hate how it feels in my body. And I just felt so off balance and so ungrounded. And honestly, it's also something I'm so passionate about sharing because it's something that no one sees. No one sees, but it's such a deep internal feeling of imbalance. And you really do lose a part of yourself. You feel like there is this black fog over you. You can't even see that well. Truly, your vision can change as well. All your nerves are affected. So again, you don't have to see the mold in your environment for it to be there. But that smell is key. Also, if you're looking around, you look at the walls, and you're like, oh, it looks like someone poured water down the wall. There's mold in there. Unless it was cleaned up in 24 hours, which no one ever does. There's mold there. If there's ever been a leak, a roof leak, if you ever left a window open and everything got soaked. And I promise you, if your closet is full of mold on your clothes, it had to come from somewhere, right? So those are just obvious things. If you're seeing mold in your environment, it is there. But if you want to test your environment to find out, there's a couple different things. If you're seeing the mold grow, you can swab it and send it out to a lab. They'll tell you what it is. But again, you got mold. You can also do air samples. Air samples are more so of a snapshot in time because it's only what's been shaken up from the environment and in the space that you're inhaling. So I do still recommend air tests, but not alone because there's not enough information. But the good thing about a air sample is that it gives you a control because it will also test the outside versus the inside of your home because some molds, again, they're abundant outside, but they should not be inside your house. So you should always have lower levels of mold than you do outside. But if it's a common species, you could tell where it's coming from, right? So that is very helpful information. I also like these types of tests because a certain practitioner can drill behind walls and they could pull out samples from these hidden spaces. Lastly, this is the most important test that I think. It's called an ERMI. It's an ERMI test that uses a different cloth. It's kind of like a Swiffer wipe. You just wipe down surfaces in multiple different rooms and it's collecting the dust. You send this out to a lab and it tells you more so the long-term health of that home. It will also give you a score so that someone like myself who is sensitive to mold can know if it's safe to live in there or not. At home, you can do a little screening test. It's called a VCS test, a visual contrast study. And this is really testing the inflammation in your eyes, in the optic nerve, and your ability to pick up on the subtle contrast, which almost everyone that has mold toxicity can't do that. So that's just a simple test. You could truly Google VCS test and do that at home as a little initial screening, and then dive into testing your home if you want to, because you can test you. You can test you. And I actually did test myself before I even knew that there was mold in my house, and it was very high. You usually test yourself with a urine test, and this is your body, what it's actively clearing out. It's what's circulating in your blood, right? So you could tell that this is the current exposure, not necessarily a long-term exposure, but mold toxins can store in the body. So as your body liberates some of those, yes, of course, they'll circulate. But for the most part, it's related to current exposure. But you really need both pieces of information, right? Because if you find out that you're exposed to mold, you need to know where it is coming from. Because I work with so many people that say that they're living in a moldy house. How can I detox? You gotta get out of the house. You have to. You have to. I hate having to tell this to people, but I did it. You wonder why I wear almost the same thing every week. It's because I had to move out of my house, throw out everything that I owned, and start fresh. And that is one of my least favorite conversations to have with someone. It really is. But having gone through it, I really know firsthand the impact that starting fresh can have. And the issue is that if you have mold in your house, again, it's not just where you see it, it is everywhere. So you can assume that most things in that house are now contaminated and they have mold on them so that they can recontaminate a new space. If they get even slightly wet, you will watch that mold grow, or you'll notice the tangy smell emerge. So it's really important that you are on top of it so that you are staying safe, because even if you were living in a moldy house, that dust now settled onto your bed, you're sleeping on it, you're waking up every morning ridiculously congested, and then you just move your bed into a new place, you're still inhaling the mold. So it is kind of an in-depth thing. And if you're sitting there freaking the fuck out right now, know that I, at one time, was freaking the fuck out about all of this. I really was, and I will help you. So this is just an intro. We're going to go even deeper over a few things, but if you want more information as far as step-by-step instructions, I have a beautiful ebook for you, and I also have a course. So please stay tuned. Make sure that you like this and subscribe to this podcast, and also drop a comment so that I can make sure to keep you in the loop. So you might have to throw everything out. We can cross that bridge when it comes. However, a lot of landlords will not want you to test their home. So if you own your house, that's a different picture, right? But if you're renting your home, a lot of this is going to have to come down to trust, and it's going to have to come down to you advocating for yourself. Because if you know your body and you know that you don't feel right, and especially if you know that this is connected to when you moved, that's your intuition saying that there's something in this space. Of course, you can get an air filter. Of course, your landlord, I can almost promise you, is going to tell you to wipe it up with bleach. Please don't fucking do that. If you wipe up mold, it just volatilizes it. Don't clean it. I didn't even touch on the people that come to test your house. Please don't let your landlord select the company to come test your house, because most companies are not mold literate. Mold literate meaning that they are not educated on the impacts that mold have on health. And I can tell you that they don't know that because they show up just in like a t-shirt and shorts and they're ready. People that are working in the mold world, they're going to show up in hazmat suit. Literally. They're going to show up with a respirator and ventilator. They're going to show up with a hazmat suit, and that's because it's so toxic to you that you don't want to be exposed. So if you have just like a standard plumber coming in and be like, oh yeah, there's no moisture here. They have their little moisture reader. No moisture, no air, no possible way there could be mold. There's no possible way, but they know what they are talking about. So you need a professional to come in and do the comprehensive. They need to look, they need to open every drawer. They need to look in the closets. They need to look under the bed. They need to test every single room. If you have a crawl space, you need to test that. If you have circulating air, you need to test those vents. You need to know the health history of your home. And if your landlord is just sending in a standard plumber, again, I hate you, ServPro. I have no problem saying that on air. I'm going to be famous soon, and everyone's going to know, ServPro, that you are not the mold experts. Please don't call ServPro ever. However, if you're in San Diego, I have so many companies that I know and love. But if you are anywhere in this country, you could just look into what services they provide. You can ask them these questions. You can ask what they were trained under and what type of testing that they do. Because again, you want direct inspection, you want direct samples, you want air sample, you want an ERMI. You need the ERMI. You could do the ERMI at home yourself. You can swab your walls, send it out to a lab and get that sample back, but still then you're gonna need to know where it's coming from. However, if there is mold in your space, the number one recommendation that I can give you is get out. I wish that wasn't my recommendation, but again, I've done this more times than I would like to say. I've gotten out of too many places, and it's not until you leave the environment that's making you sick that you can heal. So you can spend thousands of dollars on supplements. You could buy a sauna. You could do coffee enemas. You can pay for the most expensive IVs that LA can offer you. It's not going to work if you're living in a moldy house. It's just not. You're just going to waste your money. So I'm aware that emotionally a lot goes into this, right? But I am also speaking from a place of compassion and a place of understanding for the really deep impacts that it can have on you. So I don't want you to think that mold has to be black for it to be bad. It could be pink. It could be orange. It could be white. It could be green. Any mold has the potential to make you sick by direct contact or sick by what it is releasing into the air. It's not just what you see. It's what is settling on your materials. It's what is on your furniture, on your bedding, on your clothing. And also, just fun fact, your appliances can be moldy. So you need to check your washing machine. If you have a front-loading washing machine, I hate this so much. If you have a front-loading washing machine and if you pull back that little rubber, if it's black in there, congratulations, you've been washing your clothes in black mold. Fun thing is, if you rent a house, you get to bring this all up to your landlord and see how it goes. A lot of people don't have a great relationship with their landlord, so I tell them, imagine that you were a spicy New Yorker, AKA me, and advocate for yourself because your health is your everything. It's your wealth. And if you are living in an environment that makes you sick, everything that's going on will get louder. The last thing I want to touch on is how not everyone that lives in a moldy house is going to get sick. And I say live, but this could be an office, right? It could be your gym, be your yoga studio. You could have mold. Yes, it could. Not everyone will get sick, and this has to do with genetics. So we have different arms of our immune system, and one part of our immune system responds to different antigens based on the protein receptor that's on it. It's called a human leukocyte antigen. Genetically, we all have different ones, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but you and your sibling, yes, you came from the same mom and dad, but your genes, when they created you, they were chopped up, they were glued together. So you have a very different genetic expression than your siblings or your other family members. So if you have this certain genetic expression, your body will not be able to detox out the mold as well. So your bucket of toxicity will get filled so much more quickly than that of your family members, friends, colleagues, whoever is in that environment. And they will tell you that it's all in your head. They will tell you that it's not true. This has happened to me. I haven't tested myself for the genetics, but I can assume based on what happened that I probably have them. So as a reminder, you know your body better than anyone will ever know your body. And if you feel off, even if everyone else in your family is feeling okay, that's a sign. Also, new moms and dads, if your kid, if something shows up in your newborn or your young child where they're having these signs and symptoms and they don't make sense, it could be your home. And just because you're not reacting doesn't mean that it's not there. So I'm aware that this topic is a lot, and I'm aware that it can bring up a lot. And even for me, I can still feel some residual whatever from my journey, but I am sharing it because it is so common. It is so empowering when you realize that you can shift out of something that is making you sick, because so many diagnoses, things like autoimmune disease, for instance. So MS and ALS, they are quite significant autoimmune reactions against the body. There was a case of two people in my medical school that were exposed to mold that were diagnosed with MS. They didn't have MS. They had mold toxicity. When they detoxed out the mold, the lesions went away. They are both beautiful, phenomenal practitioners. You would never know that they were given that diagnosis. And these labels have weight. They do. And I work with so many people that feel lost and confused as to why they were given a label because they don't have an understanding why. And it's this feeling of, what did I do wrong? You didn't do anything. You did nothing wrong. Your immune system is trying its best to keep you healthy. And sometimes it gets a little confused and can target itself. So if you've also been given a mystery diagnosis, fibromyalgia, autoimmune disease, anything like that, look into your environment, because you can completely change your life by changing what you are exposed to on a daily basis. So if you found this helpful in the slightest, you need to keep up with what I'm doing, because I am going to continue to share all about mold, the things that help me. Truly, my ebook is going to be a step-by-step guide as to what you need to do, what you need to ask for, the symptoms, the testing, how to heal, all of it. And if you want to go even deeper with an ebook than an ebook, you need to sign up for the course. And of course, if you want to work with me directly and I can help you, please reach out. This is one of my favorite things to do, is to get mold out of the body. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for loving me, because I love you so much. That's the only reason why I share this.